The stars blinked behind her. She was staring at him intensely. Something in her gaze softened and, almost in a dreamlike state, she leaned down slowly. He saw her coming and opened his mouth to say something. She kissed him right then. Too shocked to react, he stayed frozen in place with grass prickling his back and her breasts pressed to his chest. He shifted his lips He shifted his lips against hers experimentally. They were soft, warm, wet, moving, and perfect. He couldn't think anymore. Instinctively, he closed his eyes and pushed his lips up against her, hearing a tiny smooch sound. Cool wind blew at their hair and clothes, and the sound of brushing grass and buzzing insects did nothing to distract them. She slowly pulled back, her eyes half lidded and glossy. Realizing what she had done, a gasp slipped past her lips. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, I don't know why him. He had cupped the back of her neck and pulled her in again. Her worries washed away immediately and she melted into him, grabbing both sides of his face. They would twist their heads every now and then to test out different angles, checking what worked best.
Bitch. Hmm.
She pulled away and they gasped for air. Deku. Uraraka. I. They both spoke in unison and stopped to give the other a chance to speak. What? You first. And again, they spoke over each other. They stayed silent for a while. I. Deku. I. Silence, then they both cracked smiles, then began giggling. She hid her face in his chest and he laughed into her hair. Words did not need to be said. The message was loud and clear. I love you. They lost track of time, but that didn't matter anymore. She looked back up and kissed him again, and again. Tears of pure happiness rolled down her face and landed on his cheek. He brushed his hand against her wet face and pulled her for another kiss. Every smooch was interrupted by one or both of them giggling. At some point, she rolled off to the side, staring at the sky with him, her hand in his, their fingers intertwined. He lifted his hand, along with hers, up to the stars, and they both closed their hands into fists, his hand covering over hers. She imagined a little star caught in her hold and felt the warmth of his palm as he held hers up, a promise from him. A promise to hold her up, a promise he'd help her reach her goal. After a few pro heroes ended their speech, the party ensued. Happy music played and people laughed. Perfumes and the smell of high class meals mixed together. Everyone was off to the side, near the food tables, to give room for those dancing in the middle of the room. Although it seemed like a high class event, no one took it as such. They were all teenagers just wanting to have fun, so there were plenty of brotherly fist bumps and sudden barks of laughter and a few friends being rowdy. At some point, Ochako spotted All Might. He was fully dressed in a yellow suit as he greeted the students personally, wishing them a fun night. Ishido took Hagakure to the dance floor. Mina's blue and red dress swished as she held onto disembodied glove. The flouting dress spun and Toru giggled. Ochako watched with content as her friends enjoyed themselves. When Jiro and Kaminari, Ishido switched with Ojiro, giving him a chance to dance with Hagakure. It felt unusual, watching her friends play around like that. There wasn't a competition for them to fight over. They didn't need to try their hardest at something. There was no test. The opportunity to be silly was presented, and they took full advantage of it. She heard Bakugo somewhere in the crowd, screaming at Kirishima to fucking do it right, hair for brains, followed by a chuckle from the red-haired boy. The smile on their faces sent a wave of joy through her chest. From afar, she saw him. All Might gave him a pat on the shoulder before moving away, revealing Izuku in a dark green suit and bright red bow tie. He wore a red, fingerless glove on the right hand to hide the worst of his scars, and he had those red shoes he always wore. Deku! She called for him in excitement and ran over to him. Uraraka, he greeted, a tiny blush brushing his cheeks. You look great, he complimented. You do, too, she said right back at him, because yes, he did indeed look handsome in that. She grabbed his gloved hand and dragged him with her. Come on, dance with me. She didn't give him a chance to speak, and he ended up choking on his words as she pulled him along. With a great smile, Ochako pushed herself to his chest and held him like she usually did during dance practice, with one hand grabbing his and the other on his shoulder. At first, she was the one letting, but as he gained courage, he matched her movements. He always needed that little push to get him going. They spun and laughed, and it was oh so perfect. They'd occasionally rub cheeks, as if to say, remember that night when you kissed me? Because they were not in their school uniforms anymore, so screw everyone else and let's just be happy. She spun around and he hugged her from behind. She leaned her head back to be even closer. She saw Mina by the food stand, grinning wildly and giving her two thumbs ups from afar. Ochako only turned around and hugged him back, beaming with happiness when he laughed in delight. Time swam by and the night quieted down a bit. Slower music began to play, gentle notes of a piano and the smooth voices of violins. They stopped spinning They stopped spinning and, instead, leaned on each other, swaying lightly, her chin on his shoulder as he leaned his head to the side against hers. He kept his arms around her lower back, keeping her close. They forgot about the party. They forgot how others, like Shoto and Momo, were doing the same. They forgot that the room was full of people. For a while, they weren't at a party, they were outside, beneath the stars. Each star was someone's dream, someone's goal. Hers was up there, somewhere, and she'd get to it eventually. They both would. The celebration was supposed to end after a final song and a few last words, but Izuku and Ochako weren't there. They had walked out the back, hand in hand. Out here, the greenery and neatly shaped rocks in the koi pond represented the beauty of a Japanese garden. The water reflected the glittering stars, making it seem as though the calico fish were swimming in space. Quote dot. Deku, she whispered. Let's do our best. He gave her a firm nod of promise. She lifted her hand to the star-filled sky. It just seemed like a normal thing to do now. She felt a tickling sensation against her palm. Confused, she lowered her hand and turned it over to have a look. A tiny beetle-like bug was sitting on her hand. Izuku peeked at it, and its lower half glowed. The firefly snapped its wings open and flew off her hand and over the pond, its glow reflecting in the water, making it seem as though it were a shooting star passing through the sky. While party lights were cheerful and bright, they could never compare with this. She had the most intimate moments with Deku, and the night sky was their witness. And while she had fun dancing around her friends, she'd rather be out here, with him. Where stories live. Discover now.